Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Hedera and Hbar. So with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. Hedera has been making a ton of noise around the entire space, as you guys are probably all aware of. They've been exploding out on X. They've been exploding on YouTube as well because everyone is starting to talk about Hbar. And listen, you don't even need to know TA. All you have to do is go look at the chart for Hbar, and you can see that this is just the beginning for the major move to the upside. But regardless, right, I think that we need to look over a few things because I feel as though at this point in time, Hedera is still overlooked and it is still extremely undervalued for what it will do in this cycle. So let's address a few things. So number one, the mainnet accounts created. I have been watching this steadily grow. Currently speaking, there's almost 4.6 million mainnet accounts, which is pretty crazy to think about. But over on Metrica, I have been following this metric closely. Year to date currently, and we're not even just talking about transactions. We're talking about the accounts created. Listen, 500,000 accounts are active currently on Hedera. The created accounts year to date have been 450,000, which is crazy to think about because this is just 3 months in. This second quarter of the year, you're definitely going to want to keep a close eye out on what Hedera is doing because I do think that this number is going to grow drastically, especially even around the DeFi space as well. And some of the big moves that Hedera has been making and the integrations that have been happening, in my opinion, are also going to push these numbers greatly, which we will obviously address in this video as well. But when we go back over to Hedera's website, one thing that I also want to take notice of is transactions. There was about roughly 112 million transactions in the last 24 hours, but also year to date, there's been about roughly almost 6 billion transactions that have occurred on the network. Now, the thing that everyone is wondering is why the hell are these transactions not creating value for Hbar? Why aren't they pushing Hbar to 20 cents, 30 cents, 40 cents? And the big thing that I want to really put a spotlight on is the fact that when we're talking about transactions, I feel as though everyone's falling into the trap of comparing Hedera to Ethereum when these are two completely different networks, especially when you are talking about fees. The thing that makes Hedera so lucrative and so efficient to transact on is the average cost per transaction, which is coming in at a very, very low fraction of a penny. And when we look at that, right, compared to Ethereum, the amount of transactions that can occur on Hedera in a daily span is far more greater than any other major network in this space because of these metrics, which is also the reason why I do think that Hedera is going to be an absolute breeding ground for major high scalable enterprise grade applications. And that is something that I'm really looking forward to, especially when you look at the ecosystem, specifically the enterprise applications that are within the Hedera ecosystem already. But what's crazy about this, right, is that when we go over here to the enterprise applications and you look at a lot of these, most of these, and I would argue that probably over 90+% of these have not even gone live on Hedera. There's only one to date that I know that is fully live and operating and pushing a massive amount of transactions, and that is Atma.io with Avery Dennison. Regardless, right, that we are still very well early into this revolution happening around DLT, blockchain, you name it. This is just the start for Hedera. Imagine what 5 years from now Hedera is going to look like and become. That's what I'm very well looking forward to. I'm a visionary when it comes to this technology because I do think that the most amount of money will not be made in a year or 2 years or even just a specific cycle, but in the long term, because we are investing into technology that the future world could essentially be running on. And when we look at some of these names on the enterprise list, I really do think that we're getting there. But regardless, right? When we look at transactions right now, there's roughly about 1.4 thousand transactions per second. This jumps from 1,000 to 1,500 or so every so often. But if we actually look at the daily span currently, the average TPS is about roughly 1.3K. The max TPS that we hit in the last day was about roughly 3.7K, but this is off of one known enterprise grade application that is actually pushing transactions. If we're talking about, in 1 month, doing 3.28 billion transactions just from one enterprise-grade application. This is why I say, imagine what the future is going to look like around Hedera when you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 enterprise applications live. And we're just talking about 10. We're not talking about the 5+ pages of enterprise applications that are listed on Hedera's ecosystem already. Not to mention the GC list that is on Hedera at this current moment in time, which will only continue to expand. And these are some of the largest names out there, and they're great names that are well known in the retail sector as well, but also even in the enterprise grade sector as well, which, by the way, enterprises are going to look at and say, well, this is interesting. Why is IBM? Why is Hitachi? Why is Google? Why is ServiceNow? Why is all these names on this GC? I have to look into this. And especially when the tokenization revolution is just heating up, right? When you look at tokenization, it's just starting. But you already have names like Aberdeen that are already tokenizing on Hedera. So think about what's going to happen once the snowball effect really starts to, begin, because that's when everything gets very exciting around some of these networks like Hedera. But beyond all of this, let's actually talk about some things that have happened recently, but also continue to happen on Hedera. Number one, Python Network, right? We talked about the integration. It's a big one. The number one thing that I'm focused on with Python Network is the after effects, right? So we have down here from Hbar Foundation. First off, retail DeFi, Hedera TVL has recently hit all-time highs thanks to decentralized exchanges like, for example, SushiSwap, HBarSuit, and even HeliSwap. With this momentum and the integration of Pyth, we greatly look forward to welcoming leading solutions to the network. Due to the fixed fee structure of Hedera and highly scalable Hashgraph consensus, DeFi on Hedera is incredibly efficient. Uniquely, Hedera has a property of fairness, which helps prevent issues such as MEV and front-running, improving the overall DeFi experience. These network efficiencies combined with Hedera's governance uniquely position the network for institutional DeFi adoption. The Hedera Governing Council consists of top-tier organizations that collectively govern the network, run network nodes, and build use cases on Hedera. This enables institutions such as Aberdeen via Arcix Exchange to safely build on public network and interact with Hedera DeFi. Thanks to these unique properties, we're seeing deep institutional interest in the open source stablecoin studio on Hedera as well. Through the studio, fintechs and banks like Shinhan are creating, managing, and deploying highly scalable and programmable stablecoins on the network. We greatly look forward to seeing how stablecoins built in the Stablecoin Studio may interact with Pyth in the future through the Hedera DeFi ecosystem as well. And you guys can actually see that hybrid architecture around Hedera, their token service, as well as the smart contract service. If you're a Pyth dev, Hedera has made leaps towards EVM equivalence as well. Recently, we also launched Hedera Wallet Snap on MetaMask with Tum Tech, Consensus, and Swirls Labs, opening up the network to 30 million plus new monthly users. And all of this is great for the ecosystem, but also TVL on Hedera. Now, talking about that, we also got this big announcement from Hedera, which is we are thrilled to announce that Super Labs decentralized Oracle price feeds are now available on Hedera, empowering developers to build innovative dApps with real-time data for informed decision-making, enhanced reliability, and expanded functionality. Super Labs Dora price feeds will further enable developers to build cutting-edge applications on Hedera with reliability, security, and cost-effectiveness. And all of this is also going to account for TVL and growth on the network. And over here, we could actually see a full breakdown of the Dora protocol, which is the distributed Oracle agreement. And this Oracle integration enables application developers to access real-time data that helps users make informed decisions, enhance application reliability, and expand functionality on the Hedera network. And it all is optimizing the interoperability stack, as well as enhancing the functionality of Web3 applications. So this is definitely going to be a big game changer, and it's also going to provide a lot more adoption for Hedera, which I love to see these integrations, because these integrations are crucial for Hedera's future. I always like collaboration within this space as well, and that's exactly what this is. And then down here, we just get a full glimpse at the efficiencies around Hedera, and I think that this is great. Listen, at the end of the day, what have we been talking about around Hedera for so long? It's the lack of adoption. It's the lack of noise being made. Up until 2022, the end of 2022, this was a problem. But it really started back in 2022 with all of the big moves being made by Hedera. Now, after roughly 3 years, guys, the vision is so clear for Hedera to become a top tier project. I've always said top 10, Hedera's coming. It is going to breach into that top 10 this cycle, in my opinion. Because listen, they are collaborating with some of the largest names in this space. When we look at Super Labs, for an example, almost 300,000 followers. They're one of the biggest names in the space. Even Pyth, right? Like when we look at Pyth Network, they have almost 220,000 followers. These are big names in this space that I feel as though everyone knows about. And these moves, they're not just small moves, and they're not just moves with zero weight behind them. This is all around expanding functionality of the network, enhancing reliability, providing a much more seamless integration with Hedera, and allowing for developers to actually build out on Hedera. And it's all going to provide a ton of dApp expansion on Hedera as well. I'm very excited about this. But going back to that initial discussion with TVL, right? Because this integration of Pyth is actually going to provide a lot more solutions on the network, especially lending solutions that are going to provide a lot more TVL. And the same could be said about, Super as well. Like this is all to provide a lot more solutions to be built out on Hedera that are going to tap into DeFi initiatives. When we look at all of the chains around TVL for DeFi, the number one is obviously going to be Ethereum. They have $117.4 billion in TVL tied to Ethereum. But the question is, does that sustain for the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5? I highly doubt it, considering the fact that Ethereum is extremely inefficient to have DeFi at scale continue on it. I do think that a lot of that TVL is going to trickle down. Right now, currently speaking, when we look at Hedera, it is at number 37. It is at $181 million worth of TVL. Guys, I've been putting a spotlight on the TVL. It continues to grow and grow and grow, and I do believe that this is only going to continue to grow at a rapid pace, considering the fact that it is extremely efficient to have DeFi applications on Hedera continue at major scale that is not available on things like Ethereum, for an example. Currently speaking, we just hit 178.21 million, but at the high here, we were almost at 200 million TVL. Just to put this into perspective in terms of Hbars, guys, we are at over 1.6 billion Hbar in terms of TVL. That's pretty crazy to think about. But this is only going to continue and continue and continue. And, the big thing that I want everyone to understand is when we look at Hedera, especially around TVL and especially around DeFi applications, it's still so early. It's in its infancy still. That's why when I compare it to, for an example, Ethereum, yes, Ethereum did have a jumpstart on the market because it has been around since around 2015. But when we start to see enterprises really look into the most efficient technology, we're already starting to see a lot of the dominance from enterprise coming over to things like Hedera that are extremely efficient. They're no longer looking at, hey, let's go to Ethereum because it's the most adopted network by the enterprise grade sector. No, they're now looking into and they're doing their research on what is the most efficient. When we look at Hbar, when we look at Hedera, right? And we scroll down, and this has been a long-term graphic that's been on Hedera's website for a while. But when you look at these statistics here, and when you look at the most secure network, because Hedera does have ABFT on it, it's the highest grade security possible. When we have that into, the discussion, and when you look at the transactions per second, the average fees, things like that, and by the way, the fee base here is not up to date. Because if you go back over to the mainnet or the main page, which I was just talking to you guys about, this is a much smaller fraction of a penny now. But beyond that, right? TPS, it might be throttled at 10,000 TPS, but it can achieve unlimited TPS through sharding. That is a big game changer, especially for enterprises that do, their scalability is going to change drastically around these enterprise applications. Because right now we're starting to see these enterprises build out these solutions that are not heavily adopted at all. But once we have mass adoption, imagine the scalability that is going to be required by a lot of these networks that these enterprises are building on. And I put the question out there, will Ethereum be able to handle that scalability? In my opinion, I don't believe so. I've talked about this a million times on the channel. I don't think that Ethereum is going to be the dominant force, or even Bitcoin being the dominant force around the space for the rest of the entirety of crypto. It's going to change. So far, Bitcoin has paved the way for things like Ethereum and other altcoins to be built out and become a thing. But the next generation of technology is going to be the most efficient and the most scalable technology. Bitcoin will be dethroned. Ethereum will be dethroned. What comes next? You can make a guess that it could be Hedera, it could be an AI project, it could be XRP, it could be anything. We don't know. But I would argue that Hedera has a ton of potential to become that next big thing in the space, considering the technology stack behind it, considering the adoption cycle that is already behind it as well. And all of those efficiencies, that's something that you can't overlook. We're still very well early into the revolution around technology and DLT becoming majorly adopted in the real world. But over the course of the next few years, I would argue that the entire world is going to be reshaped by AI, blockchain, DLT. And this is something that I more so look forward to because, listen, we're just getting started and it's going to be a very, very exciting ride. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because I'm free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join me for Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.